Hello and welcome to Feedstuffs 365 and National Hog Farmer. I'm Ann Hess. The Pork Checkoff has an international market development strategy aimed at building confidence in U.S. pork in a diverse global protein market. It differentiates U.S. pork from competitors and diversifies markets by adding value and trade servicing for U.S. pork and pork products. Joining us today to discuss the latest international marketing opportunities are Minnesota pork producer Randy Spronk, who also serves as the U.S. Meat Export Federation Executive Committee member, and Courtney Knupp, Vice President of International Market Development for the National Pork Board. Welcome and thank you both for joining us today. So, Randy, let's start with you. Give us an overview of USMEF, Checkoff's involvement, and or maybe even why we're invited to participate in the Heartland Tour.
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to be with you this morning. USMEF is a really unique organization. It's where basically agriculture comes together to promote animal proteins worldwide. So it's the grain checkoffs, it's the pork checkoff, and we actually use those funding then, pool them together there to do advertising, to do promotion in country here. So it's a very unique situation, which I'm happy to be part of and proud to be part of here, where we're actually taking that corn checkoff, soybean checkoff, not only from state and from national organizations, pooling them together along with pork checkoff, and actually creating funds then that are used in country to promote our products.
Courtney, tell us more about the two markets visited, Japan and South Korea, and opportunities for U.S. pork there.
Yeah, National Pork Board and our strategic partnership with U.S. Meat Export Federation has had a long history and a very successful one with both South Korea and Japan. We're talking about decades of investment and presence in market, which has been key. Both markets, Japan and Korea, are very important to U.S. pork from a value perspective. We've seen continued growth over the past decades due to this long-term investment, and they're really important customers, but also leading the way in key trends like e-commerce and introducing American barbecue and really understanding the new real developed market, as we would call it, standpoint of a very sophisticated consumer base in both countries. So our ability to market and differentiate U.S. pork, our logo, our brands, has been very successful there, and those customers really respect it. So it was exciting to be back there, especially after such a long pandemic in the Asia region.
Randy, let's give us an example of how this trip and your interactions may have built trust in U.S. pork, specifically with sustainability and production practices.
Sure. I think first off, it's for everybody to understand that, it's great to have producers be in country. Really, it's dual purpose. Number one, we're bringing producers from those checkoffs in country like that to actually see, touch, and feel, what's happening with their checkoff funds in country. But also then they are utilized by USMEF staff in country to give presentations. We actually had opportunity in both Korea and Japan. In Korea, we actually had a blogger event where we grilled for them, and then actually had the opportunity in Japan to talk to over 400 importers, where we can actually talk about our sustainability. We can talk about our production practices. And so I think it's great for USMEF to have US producers in country to be able to utilize and talk about what we do, but also then to educate those producers so that they can talk firsthand, about the value of USMEF and meat exports back to their organizations when they get back to the United States.
So, following up on that, how do those interactions with producers add value and help with diversification of that market
You
portfolio?
know, it's there again, being that transparency. I mean, it's to having the actual producer in country to be able to answer those questions about our practices, about U.S. Meat Export Federation, about how we raise pork in the United States, and I think actually having grain and soybean farmers on there, because they're such a key part of our sustainability, to have them talk about how that feeds are raised, how they're produced. And I think it's one of the key things that we've identified from prior studies is sustainability is one of the very things that we can use to differentiate us from our competitors in these foreign markets. So I think it's very important to bring producers in country then, that they can talk to those importers, they can talk to those consumers, they can talk firsthand. And I think that is very valuable as we go forward.
So, I want to go back to you talked about USMEF. How does their work help differentiate U.S. pork?
Well, I think it's from there again, clearly identified on the checkoff standpoint. We've actually, had research done here where we said, what are the key aspects that we have of U.S. pork? How can we differentiate? And as I stated earlier, sustainability is one of those key items that's got talked about here. It's also about our cold chain. It's about the modern plants that we have, about the food safety. And so we've got a very good story to be able to tell. We just needed to get it in a condensed form that we can talk to those importers, we can talk to our exporters, and we can talk to consumers in those countries, because that very clearly differentiates us when we get in country. And that's what we really want to do, is have long-term demand growth here. And I think by clearly identifying our production practices really does help that.
Courtney, I want to turn it back to you. How does this trip fit into the overall international market development strategy for the industry?
Yeah, National Pork Board is and our board of directors, on behalf of producers, realize the extreme value of exports, especially this year. Very strong, very successful. We seek to differentiate U.S. pork versus pork of other origins. We have some strong competitors across the globe, and we want to be that preferred supplier. And as Randy mentioned, we're really leaning on our story about consistency, food safety, quality, and how we produce pigs to create that product for our global customers, but also connecting exporters and importers. We do really appreciate markets like Korea and Japan, but we're always seeking to diversify to have not only access to as many markets as possible, but to capitalize on the opportunities for the pork demand. There's so many changes going on in the globe that we have opportunity to backfill lack of supply, whether it's from African swine fever that's spread across multiple continents. And we also seek to showcase U.S. pork through technical servicing and trade facilitation. We don't just provide the product at a price, we add value beyond price through technical seminars, whether it's teaching them how to cook the product appropriately, whether it's how to fabricate a carcass to showcase how they can derive more value from different cuts. So especially if a market is really into, like Japan, the pork loin, how can we introduce other cuts, which is something we're actively doing to provide more U.S. pork opportunities to those customers. That's why the partnership with Meat Export Federation is so great, because they have some of the best people in country understanding the culture and preferences. And then we can also learn a lot from Japan and Korea as we seek and are expanding into other ASEAN countries because they are seen as trendsetters.
So, for your experience in international market development and this latest trip you guys just took, what's your biggest takeaway?
The face of the producer is the best marketing material that we have. Importers really do value understanding exactly how we produce and raise our pigs here in the country that gets the meat that they see and experience. They value that relationship. And it's not just about one trip, it's about being active in markets, about our producers very much being ingrained and driving the strategy and our prioritizations, because Japan and Korea are just two of the many markets that we're exporting to on an annual basis. But we really want them to have a voice in not only leadership at U.S. Meat Export Federation, like Randy in his position as an officer, but to make sure that they're driving and seeing opportunity and really bringing that back to our producers to tell the story about why exports bring value to our producers and help to mostly maximize carcass utilization. There's so many things we just don't eat here in the United States. We have a surplus of them and we can sell them at very high value, talking non-muscle cuts. And so that story, as we look about our exports and having producers be in market, is just extremely valuable. And especially in these times, we're really happy with the strength of exports and what that's bringing back to our producers on a daily basis.
So, Randy, putting that producer hat back on, why should a producer feel proud about our work in international market development?
I'm in a unique situation where I actually went to Japan in 1999, my very first international trip with Governor Jesse Ventura on a state trip, and so was actually at USMEF in Japan. And at that time, that was our only market. And so I think what really that is coming home here today is that we're building a foundation. You're really trying to layer it block by block, and I think part of that is we talked about here is the diversification, having more than just one market, having more than just Japan, but also then differentiation so that we can have something different from one of our competitors that have been talked about here. And so I think as I look about it here and I look at the medley of countries that we export to, how we've grown that has been very important. But also then, as Courtney mentioned about carcass utilization, it's trying to promote those products in have a multitude of countries that a loin can go to, that a rib can go to, that a belly can go to. That if there is an issue with one market, we have another one that's going to pick up that slack, and actually to get the highest value in any one of those countries, so that there is competition for those primal cuts. And so it takes effort. A lot of it is behind the scenes that producers don't be able to see. They're seeing those workshops that are being done in country. That's the effort not only of our checkoffs, but also then of our USMEF staff. You're basically starting at the front end of those markets there, talking to those importers, talking to those that are bringing the product in, how to utilize those cuts and how to grow that market here. It's a long process here, but I think it's going to pay off dividends in the long term.
That's great insight from that trip and all your experience back to the 90s there, seeing all that play out. Courtney, what's next for US Pork?
U.S. Pork is can continue to invest in this space. International markets and exports are a key part of our industry dynamics, and our board, in fact, has reallocated funding even within 2023 to focus on capitalizing on incremental demand creation, especially in Asia. So we're really focused on domestic marketing efforts, but also the international space. We seek to continue our partnership with U.S. Meat Export Federation, which of course we haven't mentioned here. All producers should know is supported by the U.S. Department of Agriculture through their market access program, which means when industry organizations like Pork Checkoff put in dollars into MEF, they receive matching trade promotion funds from USDA, which really showcases the strength of U.S. agriculture with private-public partnerships. We'll continue to work with USDA, USMEF, and derive market insights for our producers to capitalize on all opportunities. We're focused on market development, which means we need to get into these markets like Central America that are at the forefront of protein demand creation, increased income, creating cold chains. And that's what we're really working on behind the scenes. So we have more future Koreas and more future Japans for our producers.
Very good. We look forward to having more of these conversations here in the near future and checking out on the progress we're making in those countries. Courtney Knupp, National Pork Board, and Randy Spronk, USMEF, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For you and our audience, we thank you for tuning in. For more coverage and conversations on pork industry related topics, be sure to check out the live and on demand section of Feedstuffs 365. For Feedstuffs 365 and National Hog Farmer, I'm Ann Hess.